All right, so today we're diving into Angkor Wat.
Oh, cool.
And I know it's one of those places that, everyone's seen the pictures of.
Yeah.
But we're going way beyond that today.
Right on.
We've got a documentary transcript that's just chock full of, expert insights and, research articles, encyclopedia entries, all that good stuff. And trust me, the more you dig into Angkor Wat, the more fascinating it gets.
It is really fascinating. What gets me is that it's often just thought of as, just this temple.
Right.
This massive temple, the largest religious monument in the world, but it was so much more than that.
That's what I'm excited to unpack.
Yeah.
I mean, the sheer scale of this thing, over 200 football field.
Wow.
And they built it in 4 decades.
That's crazy.
How logistics alone are insane.
I know.
10 million sandstone blocks,
Yeah.
each weighing a ton.
Wow.
Transported from quarries 30 to 50 kilometers away.
I mean, that's where we see the brilliance of the Khmer engineers.
Right.
Satellite images show this intricate network of canals. They built basically a water highway stretching for kilometers, connecting those quarries to the Angkor Wat site.
Right.
And the theory is they used these canals to float.
Wow.
Those massive sandstone blocks on rafts.
Oh, wow.
Probably made of bamboo.
Can you imagine the manpower and the coordination?
It's mind-boggling.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It makes modern construction projects look like child's play.
Oh, yeah.
But even getting the stone there was only half the battle, right?
Yeah.
Then you've got the actual carving intricate details on this incredibly hard sandstone.
Right.
Boggles the mind how they accomplished it all.
Well, one thing that helps to understand their approach is looking at another temple, Phon Baking.
Okay.
Researchers there found that the Khmer builders weren't just relying on brute force, they were strategic about their materials.
Okay.
They used a softer rock called laterite for the base, which is easier to carve,
Okay.
and then placed the sandstone on top for the visible structure.
So it's like they were optimizing for efficiency and beauty?
That's it.
Makes you wonder if they were trying to make the laterite invisible in the finished structure.
It's a possibility, and then there's the question of how they actually moved and lifted
Right.
those multi-ton blocks into place, especially to build those towering structures.
Yeah, how'd they do that?
3D modeling has been giving us some clues.
Okay.
They used wooden pegs inserted into holes
Uh-huh.
on the blocks, probably with ropes or levers to maneuver them.
Okay.
And to lift them high up, it seems they built these enormous earthen ramps.
Oh, wow.
Hauling the stones up and then dismantling the ramps later.
So these were like temporary megastructures in their own right.
Yeah,
The engineering involved is just incredible.
it is.
But one detail that really stuck with me is that the carving was done from the top down
I know, right?
to ensure everything fit perfectly, creating that seamless look. But imagine the skill and the planning
Yeah.
that must have required.
It's mind-boggling.
Seems counterintuitive to me.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be easier to start from the bottom?
Well, starting from the top allowed the carvers to ensure absolute precision.
Okay.
Each layer they completed acted as a guide for the next,
Oh, I see.
eliminating any possibility of misalignment further down.
Okay.
It's a testament to their meticulous approach,
Yeah.
and it's one of the reasons why Angkor Wat has withstood the test of time so well.
It's like reverse engineering perfection.
Yeah.
But, okay, we've got this mind-blowing temple, but those carvings depict a whole civilization
Right.
bustling around it.
Yeah.
Where did everyone live?
Good question.
You can't have a temple this grand without a city to support it, right?
Right. For a long time, we assumed the surrounding area was sparsely populated, but then LiDAR came along and changed everything.
LiDAR? What is LiDAR?
It's a remote sensing technology
Oh, yeah.
that uses lasers to penetrate dense vegetation and create detailed 3D maps of the terrain.
Wow.
What LiDAR revealed around Angkor Wat was astonishing.
Yeah, I remember reading about that. It was like a hidden city emerged from the jungle.
That's a great way to put it.
Tell me more about what they found.
Well, instead of just scattered settlements, LiDAR revealed a vast urban grid surrounding Angkor Wat.
Oh, wow.
Square city blocks, houses built on mounds to avoid floods.
Smart.
All interconnected by roads and canals, it was clearly a planned city designed to accommodate a large population.
And this wasn't just a small village, right?
No.
This grid extended for miles.
Miles and miles.
What's the estimated population size they're working with now?
Based on the LiDAR data, they believe Angkor was likely home to 1 million people,
1 million people.
possibly making it the largest city in the world in the 12th century.
That's incredible.
It wasn't just a city, it was a metropolis.
And not only that, but the LiDAR images also showed a sophisticated network of highways
Yes.
Connecting Angkor to the far corners of the Khmer Empire.
Exactly.
It's amazing to think how interconnected they were even back then.
Absolutely. These highways weren't just simple paths. They were raised earthen structures, engineered to remain passable even during the monsoon season. We're talking about a level of infrastructure that rivaled the Roman Empire.
It completely changes our understanding of the Khmer civilization.
I know, it's incredible.
But it also raises a big question.
What's that?
How did Angkor Wat itself, this 10 million ton structure built on a foundation of sand, survive for almost a millennium?
Right.
That seems like a recipe for disaster.
It all comes back to the ingenuity of the Khmer builders.
Right.
And one of the keys to their success is something we often overlook, the massive moat surrounding the temple.
Yeah.
It's not just for show.
Right.
It's a crucial part of the engineering.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Explain the moat magic to me. How does it help?
The moat plays a critical role in keeping the sand foundations moist.
Okay.
You see, wet sand acts like a solid aggregate,
Interesting.
providing incredible strength. They basically turned a potential weakness into a strength.
So it's like a giant built-in humidifier for the foundations.
Exactly.
Pretty clever. But wouldn't everything dry out during the dry season?
Good question. That's where that network of canals and reservoirs we talked about earlier comes into play again. They weren't just for transportation. They were also designed to ensure a stable water supply year-round.
Wow. So they were thinking long-term planning for every scenario.
They were.
But even with a stable foundation, wouldn't the immense weight of those towers eventually cause problems?
That's where we see even more clever engineering at work.
Okay.
If you look closely at the staircases around the central tower, you'll notice they're strategically placed to act as buttresses.
Oh, interesting.
Counteracting the immense weight and preventing the structure from collapsing inward, they were master structural engineers.
Okay, so they thought of the foundation, they thought of the structural support. What else could they have possibly accounted for?
Well, 3D scans of the temple have revealed microscopic details that really highlight the meticulous approach the Khmer builders took.
Yeah.
For instance, those scans show incredibly tight joints between the blocks. They achieved this through a process called abrasion, literally rubbing the stones together until they fit perfectly.
That must have taken forever.
It would have been incredibly time-consuming, and to lock everything in place, they used smaller keystones, like puzzle pieces.
Right.
Holding it all together, it's a level of precision that's mind-blowing, even by today's standards. It's no wonder Angkor Wat has survived for so long.
All right, let's switch gears a bit. Our sources hint that Angkor Wat isn't just a masterpiece of stone and water. There's another layer to the construction involving metal.
Yes.
And maybe even hidden treasure.
Absolutely. Archaeologists discovered a foundry near the royal palace, indicating that the Khmer were skilled metallurgists. They incorporated metal into the temple in fascinating ways.
So not just a stone temple, but a blend of materials, each serving a specific purpose.
Exactly.
What kind of metals are we talking about, and how are they used?
Well, for starters, the central towers were likely covered in gold leaf.
Oh, wow.
Adding to their grandeur and symbolism. And while much of the gold has been looted over the centuries, we found evidence of iron being used for structural reinforcement.
Iron clamps holding those massive stones together.
You got it.
That's some serious next-level engineering.
It is.
But where did all that iron come from?
Initially, researchers thought they had it figured out. They used scanning electron microscopes to analyze the iron's composition, and it matched a known iron quarry about 100 kilometers away, known as the Iron Mountain.
Right.
But then they analyzed the iron from Angkor Wat itself, and, well, it didn't match.
Hold on. So the iron used to build this massive, iconic temple. We have no idea where it came from.
It's a mystery that's still being investigated.
Wow.
It's possible the iron came from even farther away.
Okay.
Or perhaps from a source closer to Angkor that we haven't discovered yet. It's a great example of how even with all our technology, there are still so many unanswered questions about Angkor Wat.
Speaking of unanswered questions, what about that hidden cavity beneath the central tower? Revealed by the 3D modeling, any theories about what that was for?
The most likely explanation is that it was used to protect precious offerings to the gods, hidden away from potential looters, a secret vault in the heart of the temple.
Makes sense, but there's another theory about that cavity, right?
Yes, there is.
One that's even more intriguing.
Some archaeologists believe that cavity holds the ashes of King Suryavarman II.
No way.
The very king who commissioned Angkor Wat. Imagine the largest religious monument on Earth. Potentially also a giant tomb for its creator.
Talk about a lasting legacy.
It is.
But to really understand that legacy, we need to delve into the symbolic meaning of Angkor Wat itself.
Okay.
It's not just a random collection of towers and walls.
Right.
There's a deeper meaning behind its design.
Absolutely.
And luckily, satellite imagery can help us unlock some of those secrets.
Exactly. When you see Angkor Wat from above,
Yeah.
it becomes clear that it's not just a building. It's a representation of the cosmos.
Whoa.
A microcosm of the universe as understood by the ancient Khmer.
So walk me through this cosmic blueprint. What are we looking at?
The temple is built in what's known as a temple mountain structure.
Okay.
It represents Mount Meru, the mythical home of the god Vishnu in Hindu mythology.
Right.
The 5 central towers symbolize the 5 peaks of Mount Meru. The 3 enclosures surrounding the temple represent the mountain ranges that encircle Mount Meru.
Okay.
And that massive moat that represents the cosmic ocean separating the earthly realm from the divine.
So it's like they took their beliefs and literally built them into the landscape.
Exactly.
But there's even more to it than that.
Yeah.
Something about a mandala.
You're right. The very foundations of Angkor Wat are laid out in a mandala pattern.
Okay.
This is a sacred geometric diagram that
Right.
represents the universe and the interconnectedness of all things.
Right.
At the center of that mandala is the axis mundi, the central axis of the cosmos.
Okay.
And guess where it's located?
I'm going to guess right in the heart of Angkor Wat.
You got it. It's like they were saying, this is not just a temple.
Yeah.
This is the center of everything.
It's incredible to think about the level of intentionality that went into every aspect of this temple's design.
It really is.
They weren't just building a structure. They were creating a symbolic representation of their entire worldview.
All worldview.
But as with all civilizations, there was a decline.
Right.
And for a long time, the mystery of Angkor's fall was shrouded in speculation.
Yeah.
What are our sources telling us about that?
For a long time, popular theories blamed invasion, political upheaval, even natural disasters
Right.
for the city's sudden collapse. But just like with the iron LiDAR data and other scientific techniques, are challenging those assumptions.
Okay.
They're pointing to a more gradual decline over centuries, not a sudden catastrophic event.
So not a sudden collapse, but a slower decline.
It seems so.
That's interesting. What kind of evidence supports that theory?
Well, pollen analysis, for example,
Okay.
shows a slow return of the jungle to the area, suggesting a gradual depopulation rather than a mass exodus.
This suggests the story of Angkor's decline is more complex than we initially thought.
Right.
It wasn't just a single cause, but a web of factors that contributed to the city's eventual abandonment.
It makes you realize how much we still don't know about this period of history.
Yeah.
Are there any other clues that point towards this slow decline?
One of the things that's still puzzling archaeologists are these strange, unexplained earthen mounds found throughout the city. They haven't been fully excavated or analyzed yet,
Okay.
but they could hold valuable clues about how the city evolved and why it was eventually abandoned. It's a reminder that even with all our advanced technology, there's still so much we don't know about this lost civilization.
And that's what makes it so fascinating to explore, right? There's always something new to discover.
Always.
Always another layer to uncover. It's like a never-ending puzzle.
It really is. Yeah, it really is a never-ending puzzle.
It really makes you think about the rise and fall of civilizations, doesn't it?
It does.
What leads to their success? What causes their decline? And what traces do they leave behind?
Right.
Speaking of traces, we haven't even touched on the incredible artistry of the Khmer.
Oh, yeah.
Those intricate carvings.
They're amazing.
They're not just decorative. They tell stories, convey beliefs,
Right.
offer us a window into their world.
You're absolutely right. Angkor Wat and the surrounding temples are like giant open-air art galleries.
I love that.
They showcase the Khmer's mastery of sculpture and storytelling.
So what kind of stories are these carvings telling us? Are they purely religious, or do they offer glimpses into everyday life as well?
You know, I'd love to know more about what life was like for the people who lived and worked in Angkor. It's a fascinating blend of both. You'll find depictions of scenes from Hindu mythology, like the epic battles of the Ramayana and the Mahabharata.
Ah.
These stories would have been familiar to the people of Angkor, and the carvings served as both religious instruction and a form of entertainment.
It's like a comic book, but carved in stone. I can imagine people gathering around listening to someone recite the stories as they followed along with the images.
It's a vivid image and probably not far from the truth, but alongside these grand narratives, the carvings also offer these fascinating little glimpses into the everyday lives of the Khmer people. You see scenes of royal processions, courtly dances, military parades, and even simple everyday activities like farming, fishing, and cooking. It's really like looking through a window into their society frozen in time.
It's amazing how much information they were able to convey through these carvings.
Yeah.
It's like they were creating a visual record of their culture, their beliefs, their very way of life for future generations to see. Do we know if the carvings were all created at the same time, or were they added over the centuries, reflecting maybe changes in styles and influences?
That's a question that art historians are still debating.
Oh, really?
While some of the carvings are clearly contemporary with the construction of the temples, there's evidence that others were added later. Perhaps as part of renovations or expansions, it's even possible that later rulers used the carvings to leave their own mark on these sacred spaces.
So the temples were constantly evolving, being shaped by the beliefs and artistic sensibilities of different generations.
Exactly.
That adds another layer of complexity to their interpretation.
It does, and it makes you wonder what other stories are hidden within those carvings waiting to be deciphered.
Right.
But I think it's important to remember that for the people of Angkor, these temples weren't just tourist attractions. They were sacred spaces, places of worship, pilgrimage, and ritual. The carvings would have played a crucial role in their spiritual lives, reminding them of their gods, their myths, and their place in the cosmic order.
It's like being surrounded by a constant visual reminder of the divine.
Yes.
I can imagine it would have had a profound impact on their worldview.
Absolutely, and not just on their worldview, but on their sense of identity as well. The carvings reinforce their shared history, their cultural values, their sense of belonging to this powerful and prosperous empire. This wasn't just art for art's sake, it served a social and spiritual function.
It's fascinating to think about how art and spirituality were so intertwined in their culture. But were these carvings only meant for the eyes of the elite? Or were they accessible to everyone?
That's a great question. I think it's safe to say that the carvings weren't just created for the elite. They were meant to be seen and experienced by everyone, from the king to the commoner. It was a way of sharing stories and beliefs across all levels of society.
So it was art that was accessible to all, a way of unifying people through shared stories and beliefs.
Exactly.
That's pretty powerful.
It really is, and it speaks to the importance that the Khmer placed on art and culture as integral parts of their society, not just something to be admired by a select few.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about Angkor Wat itself, but I know there are many other temples within the Angkor complex. Are there any that even come close to matching its scale and grandeur?
While Angkor Wat is undeniably unique in terms of its sheer size and architectural ambition, there are many other impressive temples within the complex, each with its own unique features. And history, one that definitely deserves special mention, is the Bafun. Have you heard of it?
The Bafun? Yeah, the name rings a bell, but I don't know much about it. What makes it so special?
Well, the Bafun is a three-tiered temple mountain dedicated to the Hindu god Shiva.
Okay.
It predates Angkor Wat by about a century, and is considered a prime example of the Bafun style, which is known for its intricate carvings that cover every available surface.
Intricate carvings, you say. You have my attention. So how does the Bafun compare to Angkor Wat in terms of size? Is it anywhere near as massive?
While it's not as sprawling as Angkor Wat, the Bafun is still an incredibly impressive structure. Its base measures 120 meters by 100 meters, and it originally stood about 50 meters tall, including its central tower. To put that into perspective, that's roughly the height of a 16-story building.
Wow, there's no small feat. But you said originally, does that mean the Bafun isn't standing at its full height today? What happened?
Unfortunately, like many ancient structures, the Bafun has faced its share of challenges over the centuries. By the 20th century, it had largely collapsed. It became a victim of its own immense size, the unstable sandy ground it was built on, and, of course, the ravages of time and nature.
A 50-meter-tall temple reduced to rubble.
Yeah.
That's heartbreaking.
Oh.
But I'm sensing a glimmer of hope here.
Okay.
You wouldn't be telling me about this temple if it was just a pile of stones, right?
You're right. The story of the Bafun is one of resilience and remarkable human effort in the mid-20th century. An ambitious restoration project was launched using a technique called anastylosis.
Anastylosis, that sounds pretty technical. What does that involve?
Imagine a giant jigsaw puzzle, but with multi-ton sandstone blocks.
Oh my.
The temple was carefully dismantled, its core was reinforced, and then it was painstakingly reassembled using the original stones whenever possible. It's a meticulous process that requires incredible patience and expertise.
Talk about dedication, but I can't imagine a project of that scale was without its challenges.
You're absolutely right. In fact, the restoration was tragically interrupted by the outbreak of civil war in Cambodia in 1970.
Oh, no.
The archaeologists and workers were forced to flee, leaving behind over 300,000 carefully labeled and numbered blocks. And during the ensuing chaos, the plans that identified the location of each piece were lost.
Oh, no. Years of work, all that careful documentation just gone. It's devastating.
It was a huge blow to the project, no doubt. But thankfully, the story doesn't end there. In the 1990s, a new team took on the seemingly impossible challenge of rebuilding the baffoon, but this time they had to do it without those original plans.
So they had to start from scratch, trying to figure out where hundreds of thousands of sandstone blocks belonged.
They did.
That sounds almost impossible. How did they even begin to tackle that?
It was a daunting task, but the team was determined for over 15 years. They meticulously analyzed the remaining stones, comparing them to old photographs and drawings. They used every bit of available information to piece together this giant 3D puzzle.
What a monumental effort. So did they actually manage to pull it off? Is the baffoon standing tall once again?
Yes. In 2011, after over 50 years of work, the restoration of the baffoon was finally completed. The temple was formally reopened in a ceremony attended by King Norodom Sihamoni of Cambodia and then French Prime Minister François Fillon. It was a momentous occasion, a testament to the enduring power of human ingenuity and international collaboration.
It's an incredible story to think that a structure that was once on the verge of disappearing has been brought back to life.
It is.
It makes you appreciate the dedication of everyone involved in the project and the importance of preserving these cultural treasures for future generations.
I completely agree. And the baffoon is just one example of the many ongoing efforts to protect and restore the temples of Angkor. It's a constant battle against the forces of nature, but it's a battle worth fighting.
Definitely. Speaking of battles, I can't help but think about the people who built these incredible structures. What do we actually know about the lives of the ancient Khmer? What was their society like? Did they all live in Angkor, or were there smaller settlements scattered throughout the empire?
Well, the carvings on the temple walls give us some fascinating glimpses into their lives. We see depictions of kings and queens, warriors and dancers, musicians and priests, and there are scenes of daily life showing people farming, fishing, hunting, and engaging in various crafts. These carvings suggest a complex and hierarchical society with a rich culture and a deep connection to their religious beliefs.
It's like flipping through a visual history book. It sounds like there was a pretty diverse range of professions. But I'm curious about the everyday people, the ones who weren't royalty or part of the elite. What were their lives like?
While the carvings focus primarily on the ruling class, we can extrapolate some information about the lives of ordinary people.
Okay.
Remember that vast urban grid we talked about earlier? That suggests a large and diverse population with people specializing in various trades and professions. There would have been farmers, artisans, merchants, laborers, and countless others, all contributing to the functioning of this bustling city.
And those houses built on mounds to avoid flooding.
Yeah.
That's a clever adaptation to the environment. It shows they were resourceful and resilient, able to thrive in a sometimes challenging landscape.
Absolutely. Angkor wasn't just a city, it was the heart of a vast empire, and that means there would have been a constant flow of goods and people coming and going, connecting Angkor to far-flung regions. It was a truly cosmopolitan center, a melting pot of cultures and ideas.
It's mind-boggling to imagine this level of interconnectedness centuries ago. But what about their religious beliefs? We know Angkor Wat was dedicated to Vishnu and the Baphuon to Shiva. Were those the only gods they worshipped?
No, the Khmers were actually quite eclectic in their religious beliefs. They embraced a blend of Hinduism and Buddhism.
Oh, interesting.
With various deities and practices coexisting alongside each other. You can see this reflected in the temples themselves, with elements of both religions often incorporated into the architecture and iconography.
A society that embraced multiple faiths.
I know, it's fascinating.
It's a fascinating aspect of their culture. Did this blend of religions create any tensions or conflicts within their society?
That's a great question. It's one that historians are still exploring. While there's evidence of both religions flourishing during the Angkorian period, the exact nature of their coexistence is still being debated. Some scholars believe there was a harmonious blending of beliefs, while others point to potential tensions or power struggles between different religious factions.
It's so interesting to think about how those religious beliefs might have influenced their art, their architecture, their very understanding of the world.
Absolutely. The temples are obviously expressions of their religious devotion, but they also reflect their cosmology, their beliefs about the universe and humanity's place within it, the intricate carvings, the towering structures, the very layout of the city. All of these elements were imbued with symbolic meaning, connecting the earthly realm to the divine.
It wasn't just about bricks and mortar. It was about creating a tangible link to the spiritual realm, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But were there any other spiritual beliefs or practices that played a role in their society besides Hinduism and Buddhism?
There's evidence of ancestor worship and animistic beliefs, which are common in many Southeast Asian cultures.
Yeah.
The Khmer believed in spirits inhabiting the natural world, and they performed rituals to appease these spirits and ensure harmony between the human and supernatural realms.
So a multi-layered spiritual landscape.
Yeah.
With influences from various sources. It makes you realize how complex and nuanced their worldview must have been.
Exactly. And as we delve deeper into their culture, we begin to understand that Angkor Wat and the surrounding temples weren't just isolated monuments. They were part of a vibrant and dynamic society, a society that left an indelible mark on Southeast Asian history and culture.
And even though their empire eventually declined, their legacy lives on not just in the stones of Angkor, but in the art, the traditions, and the very spirit of the Cambodian people. It's a reminder that even the grandest empires eventually crumble. The human spirit endures.
A powerful lesson to take away from our deep dive into Angkor Wat, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, powerful lesson it is.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what else we might learn about the Khmer civilization as archaeologists continue to explore and uncover new pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, it really does make you want to hop on a plane and see it all for yourself.
You know, right?
But before we wrap up, there's one more thing I'd love to touch on.
Okay.
We've talked about the engineering, the urban planning, the art, and the religion of the Khmer.
Right.
But what about their everyday lives?
Hmm.
What did they eat? How did they dress? What kind of games did children play? Yeah.
I'm just so curious about the details that make a civilization come alive.
I understand it's those little details that really help us connect with the past. Isn't it? Unfortunately, those aspects of their lives are harder to piece together.
Yeah.
We don't have written records from the Khmer period.
Right.
So we have to rely on archaeological evidence and interpretations of the carvings.
So it's like trying to solve a mystery with only a few clues.
Yeah, it is a bit like that.
What kind of things have archaeologists been able to find out?
Well, based on excavations of ancient kitchens and trash pits, we know that rice was a staple of their diet.
Okay, makes sense.
Which isn't surprising given the fertile land around Angkor.
Right.
They also grew a variety of fruits and vegetables and raised livestock like pigs and chickens.
So a pretty balanced diet, it sounds like. Were they influenced by any other cultures when it came to their cuisine?
There's evidence of trade with India and China, so it's likely that their cuisine was influenced by flavors and ingredients from those regions. Imagine spices from India and noodles from China making their way into Khmer dishes.
That's so cool. It's like a fusion cuisine centuries before fusion was even a thing. What about clothing? Do the carvings give us any clues about what they wore?
Yes. The carvings depict people wearing a variety of garments, from simple loincloths worn by laborers to elaborate silk robes adorned with jewelry worn by the elite. It seems that cotton was the most common fabric, which makes sense given the climate.
So practical for everyday life, but with room for some stylish flair for special occasions.
Yeah.
It's amazing to think that these styles might still be reflected in Cambodian clothing today. What about leisure activities? Did they have any games or forms of entertainment?
The carvings show scenes of people playing music, dancing, and engaging in various sports. There are depictions of a game that resembles modern-day chess, and also a form of martial arts that looks similar to kickboxing. It seems they enjoyed a variety of activities in their downtime.
So they worked hard, but they also knew how to have fun. It's starting to feel like we're getting to know these people even across the centuries.
I know, it's amazing, isn't it?
It is. That's the power of archaeology and history, isn't it? It allows us to connect with people from different times and cultures, to understand their lives, their challenges, and their triumphs.
It's a beautiful thing.
It makes you realize that even though so much time has passed, we're not so different after all.
Right.
We share the same basic human needs and desires. But, okay, let's bring it back to Angkor Wat. If someone were to visit today, what would you say is the absolute must-see, must-experience thing that would capture the essence of this place?
Oh, that's a tough one. There's so much to see and experience at Angkor Wat, but if I had to choose just one thing, I'd say it's witnessing the sunrise over the temple.
Oh, yeah.
It's an absolutely magical experience.
I've seen pictures. It looks breathtaking. What makes it so special?
It's hard to describe. As the sun slowly rises, the sky explodes with color casting a golden glow over the temple's towers. It's like witnessing the temple awaken from its slumber, and it's a truly awe-inspiring sight.
It sounds like a moment that stays with you long after you've left.
It really does.
And it seems fitting, doesn't it? Angkor Wat, this symbol of a lost civilization, bathes in the light of a new day.
It really does. It's a reminder that even as civilizations rise and fall, life goes on, and there's always hope for renewal and rebirth.
Well said. I think it's safe to say that our deep dive into Angkor Wat has revealed so much more than just a temple.
It has.
We've explored ingenious engineering, a bustling metropolis, a complex and fascinating society, and an artistic legacy that continues to captivate the world.
So true.
It's been an incredible journey.
It really has.
And it's a journey that I hope our listeners will continue on their own. Angkor Wat is a place that beckons exploration and invites us to delve deeper into the mysteries of the past. So keep exploring, deep divers, and who knows what incredible discoveries you might make. Until next time.
Happy exploring.